wood and spindles and tin. Oh my, wood and spindles and tin. Oh my. That's what we are crafting with this week, my friends. And this is just a little sneak peek, preview of what we're gonna make. This DIY has a lot of different elements in it. Let's get started crafting. I have a client who has become a very good friend, and she bought some property from her stepfather, and this tin came off of a very old store that was on the property that she bought. And she donated some of it to me to craft with. What a great friend. I'm going to show you a couple pictures of the store back in the 1800s, early 1900s. It was a service station. This was the early 1900s. This is around 2007. And this is a piece of that tin that I cut into this little piece to use. I'm going to take my little finger sander and I'm going to sand the edges because that tin has some little shards on the edge that are really sharp. And so I'm going to just take my little finger sander, and there's probably an appropriate way to sand tin, but I don't really know what that is. And this worked, so that's what I did. Now, the tin will be fairly sharp, so you have to be really careful. See these little shards of metal that came off of it. So I'm being very careful to not cut myself. Now, my friend Myra over at Farm Fresh Designs 59 gave me this wooden leaf cutout when I went to visit her in North Carolina a few weeks ago. And this bark we stripped from one of her trees in her forest. Well, some of it was on the ground and some of it we took off the tree, but the tree had plenty, so we didn't hurt the tree at all. And I managed to make it home with it in my suitcase. I didn't get arrested or anything like that. Now I'm taking some weathered wood and a wet sponge, and I'm just going to cover this entire leaf with this brown paint. It's kind of a little bit watered down because that sponge is wet. I'm going to do the sides and the back as well. And then I'm going to let it dry completely. It's a nice warm summer day in Texas, so I just set it out on the porch of the craft cottage, and it dried fairly quick. And this is the beautiful color that it turned out. I'm going to take my Type Bond Quick and Thick, and I thought I was going to be able just to use it to adhere these beautiful pieces of bark to this leaf. But I quickly found out that I needed to add just a little bit of hot glue for that quick hold so that my pieces would stay where I wanted them while I was moving pieces around. Now, I thought I was going to be smart and just put a piece on there and glue it down and pick up my next piece. Then I decided, maybe I should lay it all out and have a plan. Maybe we should have a plan. That would be a great idea. So I started picking up the pieces and breaking them and making them look, how I wanted them. So I'm not going to bore you with all the time that it took me to do this. Well, it probably took me about 20 minutes to do this entire process. You see there now I got smart and started putting some hot glue down. Then I started just laying them down and trying to figure out where I wanted the pieces and got all the pieces laid out how I wanted them. And then I started gluing them down. That was a much smarter way to do it. Some of the pieces, I made them thinner and, broke them apart. Some of them look like they just should be where they needed to go. And then later you'll see that I go back in and fill those little empty spots in with some of those little crusty pieces that fell off. And then I just glued some pieces to some of the edges and let it hang off, like kind of poked it up underneath there. And then I went along and just like you would with a finger sander, I'm just going to poke that in there with my little tool. And just like you would with a finger sander, I'm going to use my finger and go down all around the edges. But I don't need a sander because these just break off real easy. But just like you would a finger, your sandpaper around the edges when we're doing paper, I'm just going to rub off all those little pieces of bark so that we can have a nice smooth edge. Now there are some little empty places, so if you have a little bit of OCD, like sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, I'm a little ADD with my OCD, I'm going to just put a little bit of Type Bond in there and then pick up a few of those little crumbs
and drop them in there to fill it in. And it worked out just perfect. I love, love, love how this leaf turned out. Now I'm going to use, surprise, surprise, some canvas drop cloth. I frayed the edges of this drop cloth because I like that look, and I wanted to have some contrast between the leaf and this piece of rusty crusty tin. Just got a piece of this ribbon out of my stash. It originally came from Sam's Club, and then this other little ribbon came from Joann's a couple of years ago. I'm going to take some drop cloth, canvas drop cloth, cut a few little strips, just whatever color pieces of things I had that I thought would look good with this, or what I liked. All of these DIYs are just for inspiration. Now, I had these little wooden acorns that came from Dollar Tree. They came in a little pack, 6 or 8 of them in a pack. And I'm just going to take some dark wax by DIY and rub it all over it, because that just gave it just the look I wanted. And I did trim down that bow a little bit. It was a little bit too big. And I glued it down to the center, and then I'm just going to glue these 2 little acorns right in the center. Kind of had a little trouble with the placement, but I ended up just playing with it until I figured out how I wanted them on there. And sometimes you just have to keep messing with it. Sometimes I have to walk away and come back. Okay, now we're going to glue down the canvas drop cloth. I'm going to make sure that I have it straight and even, and then flip this tin over. And I'm going to use the Titebond and some hot glue. I think the hot glue would have held the canvas drop cloth to this tin just fine, but I want to be sure. I really think that I should have put some on the front, but I didn't. I only did it on the back. I will show you why in just a minute, because when I put that heavy leaf on there, I had to make some adjustments. Now, I used this thicker jute cord that I got at Walmart. I put some masking tape on the end so that I could get it through the holes. One of those holes was already there. It was from where they had it screwed to the roof. And then I just drilled another one with my drill. And I'm just going to tie a knot in it so that it doesn't pull out. And then I'm just going to cut that masking tape off. And I like to put a little drop of super glue right down in that knot so it doesn't go anywhere. I'm going to take just that dark wax that was left on my brush, and I'm going to brush it over this drop cloth and over those little saw marks that I have on there. My saw kind of skid out of the cut line on me a couple times, and so I'm just going to make it where it's not so shiny. Now, I put the Titebond all around this and the hot glue in the middle. Now, I've tried to make sure that I put that hot glue and press it down so it goes all the way through the canvas drop cloth onto the tin, so that the leaf is actually attached to the tin, if that makes sense. Otherwise, it's going to flop because the leaf is heavy. So I think this turned out just lovely. So let me know what you think about it in the comments below.
What did you think about all the elements in that one DIY? Wasn't that fun? Hello, my name is Kendra and you're watching Late Night Creations. I have more great DIYs to come in this video, so stay tuned. Let's get back to crafting.
I used one of these signs in a previous video, and several people thought I was making a pumpkin with it, so I thought, well, I better just make a pumpkin. So I took it out and sanded the front of it off, and now I'm going to paint it with Summer Crush by DIY, and I'm going to give it one good solid coat all across the front and the sides. I get all my DIY paints, my IOD products from Sammy at www.unicorndustdesigns.com. Her link will be in the description box below. I used a little bit of weathered wood to make the dark stripes. I mixed it just in with my brush that already had the paint on it, and then a little bit of vintage linen mixed in to make the lighter ones. Now, I'm using the Varathane finishing paste wax and buffing it out because it's going to give this a durable finish that I can use it on my front porch. I have this little spindle. It's the bottom of a chair leg, and I'm just going to use my sander and shape it up. Now that was in real time, and I don't want to bore you with all the sanding that I did on this little spindle to get it where I wanted it to be, but I'm showing you that I'm going to make the back of it flat so it will lay flat on my pumpkin and look like a stem or a peduncle, whatever you want to call it. And so I made it flat. I'm going to show you here shortly how the back of it looks flat and how easy that was. Okay, here is our spindle all finished up. I'm going to take some aviary paint. It's a beautiful green by DIY, and I'm going to paint this little spindle with one coat. I'm not going all the way down to the bottom because you are not going to see it. I'm going to dry it up with my heat gun, and then I'm going to take some good old Elmer's school glue. I'm going to squirt a little bit out in this old lid, and I'm going to give it this spindle a coat of it. A little thicker in some places, not so thick in some places, because we're going to do a crackle effect. The places that you want the crackle thicker, put, the glue thicker. Now, while the glue is still wet, we're going to use layered chocolate. Is this layered chocolate or weathered wood? I think this is weathered wood. And I'm going to put a thick layer of the paint without overlapping. You can just put one coat. Cannot go back and forth, and the crackle will begin immediately. I'm going to use my heat gun because I want the crackle to be pretty thick, because if you've ever seen a pumpkin stem, they are kind of green and brown and all the colors. So that's what I'm going to do. Now I sanded it down a little bit so that my glue would stick well. And I'm going to put some Titebond Quick and Thick and some hot glue. And this looks so cute, y'all. I love this pumpkin. I actually have it sitting on the credenza underneath my TV. Gonna take some Spanish moss and just put a big clump of it right on the bottom of this peduncle. I'm going to put some glue a little bit on each side. Now I have this old piece of crusty wire that I actually found in my husband's shop, and he doesn't really listen to my videos, so he's not going to know that I stole it from him. I wrapped it around that little wooden handle to make it like a little spiral, and I'm going to glue one of these little burlap leaves from Dollar Tree on here, and look how cute this is looking so far. So cute. Now I have some, and there's that little curly Q. I have some raffia that I got at Hobby Lobby on clearance after the fall season, and it's kind of in this brown rust color. And I'm just going to tie a knot. I'm going to get some all about the same length. I'm going to tie a knot in the middle. I tie it pretty good, then I loosen it up just to make. It's not even, I won't even call this a bow. I don't even know what you want to call this. Some kind of little messy adornment. How about that? I'm going to glue that right up on the top, right up in the middle, in lieu of a bow, just like you see me doing here. Oh, I'm going to trim it first so that it's even on both sides. And how I do that is I just fold it in the middle so both sides are even. Okay, just like this, and this is what it looks like. And last but not least, we're still using spindles out of that big old stash. So we're going to use one of these spindles. I cut it down to size. I'm going to use some faded burlap by DIY, and I'm going to paint this entire piece with one good coat. I'm showing you here how to paint a spindle, just in case you didn't know. So painting the entire piece. There we go. Then I had these little wood rounds that I got off Temu for a very good price. And I'm just going to paint the inside of them with the faded burlap because the original color was a little golden. So I did it, then I wiped most of it off with a wet wipe just to give it the right tone. Now I got these little, I don't really know what these are, beaded charms from Hobby Lobby. They were $1.49 and I got them when they were 40% off. So that was a steal of a deal. Now I'm going to paint this orange color by DIY. I believe it's called Summer Crush. Then I'm going to add a little bit of, I think, maybe layered chocolate or weathered wood in there to make the stem just a little bit darker. And then I'm going to make some lines on the pumpkin with what's left in the brush. There we go, just like that. Just to make it look a little more like a pumpkin, you know. Give it a little dimension. So I do that on both sides. Now the leaf, I'm starting out with some faded burlap. And then I'm going to dip my brush with the faded burlap still in it into those brown colors that are in my little mixing lid. These lids come off of, I don't even know what I have that was in, but the faded burlap on the leaf is still a little bit wet. It's not completely dry, so these colors are blending in there. I'm just going to blend it, and then I just add a little darker on top so it looks like a little fall leaf. Now I'm going to take, I believe this is cake batter by DIY for our acorn bottom, and for the little hat we're going to use layered chocolate. And I'm doing these, I'm painting this on both sides of each one of these little charms. And then I'm going to dip my paintbrush, get most of the paint off, and then dip it into that lighter brown color and make the little lines on the top to make it look like the little hat of the acorn. And when you can see it a little bit better when it dries, and it's not really what I'm trying to say. It's very subtle. See there, as it's drying, it's very subtle, which is fine. Okay, I did put a little shading on the bottom of the acorn as well with just the same technique. I'm going to use some clear wax by DIY, and I'm going to give it a really hefty, good, thick coat of DIY wax all over the spindle. I also used the wax on those charms. Okay, then I buffed it out. Then I'm going to use dark wax right on top. So the dark wax is not going to be as dark because we have the clear wax on there. It's going to wipe back a whole lot easier. But this is one of my favorite colors to do, is that faded burlap with the dark wax. I absolutely love the outcome. I just think it's so beautiful. So I did that. Now I want to put these wood rounds behind the straight flat parts of the spindle so that it is elevated away from the wall so that the beads, it's like a spacer. So there's enough room for the beads to hang, because we're just going to make a little hangy. It's kind of like a towel bar, but it's for decoration. Now, I started with some hot glue and some Tite Bond, and then I realized that that wasn't enough space. The beads were too thick. So I took it apart and I got a second wood round, and then I just glued the two of them together, and it was kind of fun because the second one was just a hair bigger than the first one, and so that worked out perfect. I didn't even paint the second one, and then I glued those two together like you see me doing there. And then I went ahead and sanded down. I wiped it. I didn't sand it. I wiped off that paint with a damp cloth thinking that maybe that was the reason that the glue actually peeled off really easy. That hot glue peeled off really easy. So I was hoping that doing that would help the hot glue stick to this better. So here we go. Trying it again, and it worked perfectly this time. I could have done my little trick with the holes and the dowel sticks, and that would make it be even more durable. And that's probably what I should have done, but this worked just fine. I did drill some holes in the back of each of those wood rounds to use to hang it on the wall.
Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. Be sure and check down at the bottom and make sure that you are subscribed. Be sure and leave this video a thumbs up. Drop a comment in the comment section below and let me know which of these was your favorite and which one of these elements have you never crafted with before that you want to craft with. Maybe you've crafted with all of them. Send me some pics to my email address of some of the elements that you've crafted with. I would love to see your creations. But most of all, I want you to remember to be still and know that He is God.